On a sunny Saturday morning, Gary Coslovich was weaving in and out of traffic along I-80 in Fairfield, California, when he smashed into two cars going 80 miles an hour. The crash made the drivers spin out. Gary kept on driving until a California Highway Patrol (CHP) officer pulled him over, and that's when he had to stop. However, when Gary saw that the cop who made him pull over was female, he lost his temper. Gary beat the officer on the shoulder of Interstate 80 westbound, American Canyon, before he reached for the officer's gun, according to witnesses. The moment Gary reached for her gun, the witnesses, strangers to one another, decided it was time to intervene. Joel Jones and his wife Annalisa, who runs a church called Spirit of Truth Church Worldwide, saw the mess Gary was making in his car before being pulled over. The couple decided to follow the erratic driver until he was pulled over, and that's when they witnessed his heinous assault on the police officer. The suspect punched her, hit her repeatedly, beat her to the ground, and started stomping her. Jones, a 61-year-old retired San Francisco County Sheriff's deputy, recalled. Even though Jones didn't know it at the time, he wasn't the only one who witnessed what Gary was doing. Gary Coslovich was like, No, I'm not doing this," said Joel Jones, the pastor of the church in Crockett, throwing his hands up. "It was surreal. It was like I was about to see a murder in front of me. What are you going to do about it?" he recalled, describing the moment he says Coslovich savagely attacked the officer. "I thought he was going to take her gun," Jones explained, according to the NY Post. "He was at her waist midsection. I told my wife, I said, 'Stay here,' and I said, 'Lord be with me.' I saw her crawling, and then I saw her trying to get up, and so I said, 'Is this really happening?'" recalled Annalisa. As his wife prayed for the beaten officer, the pastor relied on his skills as a former college linebacker and retired cop to knock the suspect off his feet and stop the heinous beating the officer was getting for simply doing her job, according to Fox 2 reports. When Joel stepped out of his car, Greg Bunting, a 52-year-old motorcycle mechanic, jumped in to help. "It's hard to see a woman hit by a man," said the father of two, who thankfully was driving by and saw the officer being beaten to see that was. There's no words to describe it except for it was sick. The two saviors were able to hold Gary down until backup police arrived and arrested him. Gary was charged with assault and battery against a police officer. And as most police assaulters are, he was no stranger to law enforcement. Gary was fired from his job as a painter for Santa Clara County a month before the incident. He was accused of ramming his truck into a county building. Thanks to these two brave men, this walking threat was finally thrown behind bars where he belongs. The police officer, who remains unnamed, was treated at the hospital for her injuries and bruises, which thankfully were only moderate. Had it not been for Jones and Bunting, the officer would have been in a much worse state, and they were both applauded for their brave move that probably saved the officer's life. When they were asked about what they thought of people calling them heroes, Joel said that he doesn't see himself as a hero, as he is only a servant. "I'm no hero, I'm a servant," the pastor said. "I'm no hero, no more than anybody else." Greg, who was once a youth minister himself, agreed with Jones and continued, "We're no superheroes," he said. "I think God puts us in places for a reason." Indeed, these two East Bay men, who are now being hailed as heroes for saving a female CHP officer from brutal beating, were the miracle she was likely praying for in that terrifying and helpless moment. And even though they don't believe they did anything spectacular and worth all the fuss their action received, not everyone would put their life on the line for a stranger, especially not in the world we live in today. And if that isn't the definition of hero, we don't know what is.